Ihsaan is up next.
Good afternoon, everyone. I don't know, I guess maybe serendipity that Arnold actually went before me because I'm going to actually, some of my results are from NAEP or the National Assessment, and it kind of looks at reading as a microcosm of what's happening or lack of reading, what's happening to students in education today. All right. So, how do we effectively address the issue of reading intervention in elementary education? So, our students cannot read. How many times have we heard this? What exactly is meant by this? Are they just simply talking about decoding? Is a child simply not comprehending? How did they get to this grade and cannot read? And what can we do to fix the issue? These are just a few of the questions that I and other educators have asked throughout my time as a teacher in the city of New Orleans. We can all agree that a student's ability or inability to read greatly impacts their academic achievement, progression, and the teacher's ability to effectively educate him or her. What is not agreed upon is how to address this issue and why this issue seems to be extremely pervasive when it comes to schools with a large enrollment of African American students, particularly here in the New Orleans area. As educators, we know and the research support those students who are behind are more likely to become the behavior issue in class. They are more likely to be suspended. They are not engaged in the lesson or learning, and they may miss many days of school. All these actions further contributing to learning loss and creating more deeply entrenched academic deficiencies. So here we have, let me see if I can, the 2019 National Assessment of Educational Progress, the NAEP, test for reading. Actually, it's reading and math results that are up there for 2019, but focusing on reading, it's given across the nation. We see that 17 states saw their reading scores decline in comparison to the 2017 scores. Mississippi, however ironic, was the only state that saw an increase, and that was only of a 1 point. Louisiana's achievement remained the same as it was in 2017. So, current strategies that are in place, RTI of 30 minutes, which also includes travel time to and from the interventionist room, um, or where that intervention is taking place. If we're walking, depending on the layout of your school, I know for me, we're walking upstairs from lower levels, or if you're walking across the campus, oftentimes only once. If you're lucky, it's twice a week. It's not targeted for an extended amount of time, meaning that we aren't getting 1 to 2 concepts or strategies and focusing on working over that over a period of time, not less than 9 weeks. Um, also, right now, all students that are in need of services are not receiving the intervention. We have schools that are using that have RTI with large groups of students, meaning more than 10. Um, Teachers are not trained or have not been taught how to teach reading, let alone RTI. There's a lack of curriculum and reliance solely on digital platforms. So I know in my current school, they have intervention for grades 1 through 3 that are receiving pull-out interventions. The allotted 30 minutes that they have does include traveling up from the first or second floor all the way to the third floor. By the time you get situated, you've eaten through a great chunk of your time. Current in-school intervention practices only expose students to a minimal amount of time on task. These in-person interventions may or not be coupled with digital platforms such as Achieve 3000, iReady, and iExcel, to name a few. However, best practices and current pedagogy suggest that direct teaching is the best method to deliver intervention to students who are struggling. So currently in the state of Louisiana and the city of New Orleans. In April of this year, the Advocate newspaper reported that for the past 3 years, the scores for first through third graders has decreased. The state superintendent does see a cause for alarm, and particularly in New Orleans, there is a great number of our kids who currently test below grade level. Despite not being able to read, these students are still passed gratuitously from grade to grade, and they are allowed to matriculate through our educational system without their reading deficiency being addressed. So this information from Louisiana Believes does show that from 2018 to 2019, what the percentage of first through third graders who are testing below level, or shows the percentage of first through third graders that are testing below level. We can see here in 2020 that in kindergarten is almost 60%, first grade as well, and second through third is right at half. So this data also from Louisiana Believes. So Benjamin Franklin is highlighted because that is the school that I work with. But if you look at the numbers, you can see where in some of the schools, the percentage of kids who are reading below level is significant. And that is putting it extremely mildly. So again, and I'll go through a little bit slow if you want to get a deeper glance at those. So again, these test results are for, I did review initially the test results for all of Louisiana. I would argue that because the reading deficits have not been adequately addressed or remedied at the K-3 grade levels, that a lot of these numbers can be extrapolated to be the reading levels of subsequent grades. Testing, the assessments that were used or that they are reporting on include DIBELS, Acadiance Reading, STEEP, and STEP. So in education, we always talk about, using evidence-based curriculum and evidence-based best practices. Not that that is always followed through on. So when doing RTI, it's recommended that the groups be from 3 to 6. If you can't do one-on-one, do a group from 3 to 6. Small group intervention should include 2 to 4 students per group. This is according to the Center on Learning Disabilities. Have 3 to 4 interventions per weekly. Have these sessions last 30 to 60 minutes per week and for a duration of 9 to 12 weeks. The study done by Reading Instruction Group for Students found that students in a group of 10 failed to make minimal gains, while interventions with students in groups of 3 and one-on-one were highly effective. So I know in my experience that there was an intervention group and I had 19 kids. And I was confused as to how that was intervention. So recently, in the last maybe 3 years, there has been a cry for additional funding for early childhood learning. In the state of Louisiana, they have increased the funding. The city has even come up and pushed funds for K-3. And we also have community organizations like the United Way, which has started the New Orleans campaign for grade level reading. And in their program, they aim to have low income students reading on grade level by 2027. So it's great to have that push for early childhood learning. However, the deficits for students from grades 4 through 12 don't seem to be adequately addressed. What can we do at the school level? Making sure across grades, or in all grades, that within the first 3 weeks of school, every student is tested, all teachers to receive teaching or reteaching on the 5 components of reading, how intervention can be, some forms of intervention can be done in class. All teachers across content should be teaching reading, making sure that we're doing phonics and vocabulary. Um, Also to have, for lack of a better word, kids buy in and be more engaged in the reading. The majority of the selected reading material should reflect the student body with room for differentiation. This may foster more interest in reading because the students can relate to characters and or there is a high interest in the concepts. Making sure that our small group RTI is truly that small group. Groups no larger than 6, at least 60 minutes for those 1 grade level behind, at least 90 minutes for those 2 or more grade levels behind. 9 to 12 weeks spent on no more than 3 strategies, and 1 reading interventionist per every 300 students, with at least 1 interventionist grades K through 2, another one for 3 to 5, and another one 6 to 8. And make it mandatory for all grade levels to have interventions. And I specifically or break it down like that because I know in my building we have 1 interventionist. Again, she only sees grades 1 through 3. And if you have a large number, if you have 80% of your kids who are reading below level, for 1 person to effectively do RTI is, to me, not realistic. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing so I can see faces. Questions?
Janae has her hand up.
Yes.
So did you say in your school there's 1 interventionist and they only work with grades 1 through 3?
Yes, I work at a K through 8 school,
Mhm.
and she only works with 1 through 1st through 3rd graders. Yes.
So that just leaves out the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. And then these kids, like you said, they matriculate on through the school system. So what about the dropout rate?
Or I have researched it in the city of New Orleans. Supposedly, the dropout rate for the city has decreased since
Okay.
Katrina.
Mhm.
And I say supposedly because we've seen skewed. Sometimes you can make numbers say what you want them to say.
That is true.
You
Because
say,
it just seems like, I mean, it just like with us and Broward with the social workers working 3 different schools, there's no way 1 person can, cover such a broad area. And you said the city is stepping in. Are they stepping in to give money for?
yes, they dedicated funding to the early childhood learning. They, funding for Head Starts, making sure that reading programs are embedded in them, opening up more seats. Actually, let me say that they're paying for more seats in Head Start and early childhood development centers. to give kids more exposure, and which I think is great. But my thing is, we have students now
Yes,
who
that
are
are past Head Start. So what about those students? They're still being left out.
So yes, there has been no real push to address those. I can say in my school in particular, because I'm a mentor teacher there, in our most recent meeting, there's been, so our PDs over the summer will focus on how to do RCI in the class, which is great. I don't have a problem with, but with the deficiencies that I see in reading, I think that it's going to get pushed on the side because teachers are not going to focus on that. It's going to be something, oh, maybe I can dedicate 15 minutes to, and it won't be done in earnestness.
Yeah.
So the kids still won't have their issues addressed. They have pushed, like we use, what do you call it? Achieve 3000. That's supposed to be a great, supposedly, tool to use for kids for, what do you call it? RTI, or to increase their reading scores. And I'm not saying that it doesn't, but again, when we preach, using best practices, and the research shows that best practices is direct teaching, that I'm lost some.
What about summer school? Do they have summer school, Saturday school, just to bring those kids that are falling behind or that are behind? There are no programs for them, to be able to get caught up.
All schools do not offer summer school. I think that this summer that a lot of schools who even didn't do it in the past may be offering it because there has been additional federal funding to address the learning gap. But like even at my school, it's not, because I'm going to always sing to the high heavens, hey, we need to do something about reading. That's not what their focus is this summer. So again, it really depends on your leadership.
It always goes back to leadership.
Or your lack thereof, yes.
Well, I thank you, all the teachers everywhere. They're in the classroom, past and present. I'm not a teacher, don't want to be a teacher, but I know a lot of teachers, principals, and I feel the pain just as a parent, and I see my daughter may be doing well, but someone else may not. And, and parental involvement is good as well. Because at my daughter's school, they used to have reading and math coaches, which were parents, community people that were cleared to come in, and they would pull a student out twice a week and just work with that one specific student one-on-one. And it worked. It showed a lot of gains because those kids felt good about, being pulled out. They had a special person they could go to, and their reading levels went up and their math, skills improved. So I see your passion. I see it in your eyes. And my hat's off to you. Bless you all. So, and you too, Miss Laura. I know you're not in the school anymore, but you're still a teacher in your heart.
And I agree with you, Rebecca, that vocabulary definitely needs to be taught. That's another one of those things that's seen as, it's not even secondary. It's just like, oh, maybe we'll throw one or two words in there, or you'll mandate that teachers put up a word wall and, like what do these words apply to? I mean, we're just putting up, for all we know, arbitrary words and truly not using them. So yeah, reading is definitely my passion.
I like the way the thread is being followed, that we started with Tom showing us that there are disparities in in the New Orleans system. And then we saw with Mr. Arnold that the disparities can be shown and proven. And now you're telling me that, you know, we have disparities and we know where they are, but the interventionist that could fix those disparities is going to be pulled as a substitute or used elsewhere, and their knowledge is not, you know, protected as supreme. And it's just so sad that we don't have the expert with the child, because that seems to be the greatest asset, is our teachers who can spend time with the student and get the learning done.
Correct.